Hello and welcome to this Glyph screencast where I'm going to show you how to draw the lowercase a. Lowercase a can be perhaps a weird kind of character to look at initially because it's a kind of character where it doesn't have, let's say, as many direct pattern elements as you see in other characters in the lowercase, like for instance, the BDPQ. Share a lot in common with the O. They share a lot in common with the L, or this left side of the N. But I'm going to show you how the A actually is quite similar to these characters and how we can draw it. So what we're going to do is type the A glyph in, and I'm going to start by taking this side of the N. Now, if you think to the calligraphy exercises that we did in class, or that calligraphy exercises that you may have seen before, you'll notice that the lowercase a is actually made from an initial stroke that begins by writing up with a broad edge pen, down and stopping here, and probably flicking up like this. So actually getting a similar stroke to that you see on the T. So we can actually borrow these parts. And then of course there's a curved bowl on that A, so like that. We can use the O to get started for that shape. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually do some more cutting up. What's great about having this many characters drawn, these fundamental characters, is that I can start chopping up other characters and using elements from them to start building these characters. For this typeface, I'm not sure how I want to treat the top of the A, so we'll just wait. I don't know if we want a terminal of some kind. We'll decide as we go. But what I'm going to do is grab the T and paste it in here. The other thing that I should mention about these videos where I'm just showing how to draw letters is that you should reference the screencast where I talked about how to work along designing your letter forms to work within a variable design space across master designs. So obviously here I'm not going to draw the bold A or a light version of an A if you were going to develop those masters. But the same technique is going to apply. Really, once you get your core design, it's really important to get that core design of a letter form. And it's really also good to get a kind of core set. Now, when I'm drawing a typeface, I tend to design it the way that you see it being drawn in this typeface, where I've got actually all the masters sort of going on at once. Some of them don't have it yet because I'm not fully complete on these characters, but for the most part, the way that I tend to design, especially with a variable font, is, and in fact, really all the typefaces I'm designing now are in a variable design space workflow. I'm drawing all these masters at the same time because it's actually more efficient, because what I'm doing when I'm designing a variable font is I'm not drawing this, let's say, normal weight in isolation, because I need this normal weight to behave in accordance with the lighter weights in the design space and the really bold weights of the design space, etc. The narrow, the wide. I need them all to behave together. So I need somewhere that is a point of departure in the design space, and for this particular design, and for most designs, it tends to be the normal weight, where this is where I'm probably sketching the idea. But some typeface designs, they come from the really bold or the really thin versions, and then you populate the design space as you need it by working from one source. But you start with a source and you build out from there. Okay, so back in here. So what we're going to be doing, of course, is we're just using these normal quote versions of letters to learn how to draw them. And this is a really good starting point, because what the normal text weight here, well, the normal, let's say, weight or version is going to get you is it's going to allow you to get a sense of what is a kind of text version of this letter going to look like. If you're doing a display typeface, then that changes, because the purpose of designing the display typeface is for it to be used in much more specific contexts than, let's say, a typeface that's meant to be used for text, which means it can be used for display, which means that it's used for more use case scenarios. But it makes sense to start with this, and then I can populate. Okay, now this tail is too large for the A. It should be more like this size. So notice how I use the same part that I began using from my T to get started. However, I'm going to change the shape because it needs to suit the overall proportion of the lowercase a. And right now these are sitting too high. It needs to be lower. And this. All right. This is a pretty good general shape for the A. Now I've got that shape. Of course, lots of refinement to come, but this is a really great working form. I think that this tail is actually the best way to tell is to put an N there and see. Right now, that's not bad. I think that would be okay actually to start. I think it's possible that that could create some issues, like this is probably too wide, and we do have the ends fit together. So see, that's creating a pretty large counter space there. Instead of making a negative side bearing, I think that the design should change to incorporate the typographic system better. And I'm going to tuck this in. All right. And let's do this. All right, that's better. Okay, that's much better because now if I go back to that same side bearing, much better fitting. Okay, now I think the best way, I mentioned that you could use the O to get started for that bowl, and I think that the O does play an important role here, so I'm going to bring it in. But I think actually the best thing is to do the same thing we did on the T and even for the top part of A, is to actually take this connection. So watch, I'm going to paste the whole N and flip it twice. Because remember with the U, I actually, you know what? I want this bottom because I want the same entry point here. If I think about the behavior of writing, okay, when I'm making a letter like the U, I'm writing and swooping up into this, and then this connection meets a stem. That would be the same way that I would actually write the A, and then connecting up like that. So actually, I should be taking this, and what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put this right on this area, and I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to get rid of this part. In fact, I'm going to get rid of all of that. Well, actually, no, I'm going to leave it because it's useful to me, to us. But now look what I've got. I've got some consistency building, really very good consistency. We want that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this a bit, and I'm going to make these, remember, option click. I'm going to make these curves, and I'm going to take this and just place it over here in this area because I need the A to have this kind of shape. We don't know yet. Obviously, this looks crazy. It doesn't look very good. And this is a pretty good width, by the way, for the A. So I'm going to try to stay in accordance with the A, with the way that it is, which probably means that this has to get a bit narrower. but I'm still keeping the same overall shape. I'm not losing that. And then what we're going to see now is we're going to drop this. And I'm going to get this bottom half working more or less well. Now this really does depend, the decisions I'm making right here. What kind of A do I want to draw? Am I making an A that has a super kind of calligraphic movement, which would probably mean this gets pretty abrupt. It would come down and be a pretty abrupt movement. Or do I want this to be a more or less curved move? And what we're going to do for now is I'm going to keep this curved because it's a little bit easier to make and quick. Not that I'm advocating for taking an easy way out, but it's just to keep this screencast to a decent size. All right. Now that, I think, is working better. Now this weight, it can change, and especially when you get bolder with this A, this probably has to get a lot, let's say, thinner in relation to the boldness of the overall curve and branch stem stroke. But it should be something similar to this as a matter of course. So it's about the same weight now. That's pretty good. And you might also wonder, how big should this bowl be? That depends on a few things. Obviously, if I tested this A, I could maybe tell if, does it look like it's working well in text at text sizes. Also, when we draw the lowercase e, we want the E counter shape here and the overall width of this to be similar to what we see here in the A. Now the top of this terminal, we can do a few things. Right now this is a pretty nice kind of movement and flow. Like if I get the N in here, that's pretty nice and rhythmic. I kind of like that. And what I might do with the A is I might make that angle straight, and I might give it a bit more weight at the top here. Something like this. Trying to keep the same movement, but actually for this typeface, this I think works much better. You also notice that designers have their own tendencies to drawing letters. Like you'll notice if you look at this typeface and then you look at my other typeface, Mazina. Oh, sorry. You'll notice that designers, I have a tendency in the way that I draw things. I tend to have these kind of curves here, and I try to make the typefaces, the lines in the typeface appear to be flowing and not too abrupt, usually, but that's just a tendency. Okay, that's a good A. So, I'm going to end this one, and then we'll see you in the next.